Charlie, another topic we discussed at length in our Safe to Land workshops was the OEM checklists and how much they load us up at the exact wrong part of the flight. You know, right in the end when we're busy, we're looking at weather, we're trying to figure out which approach. And I know for my CJ2, the OEM checklist has 14 items on the approach checklist, and the before landing checklist has 7 items.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember you made a comment that there should be 2 items, flaps and gear.
Exactly.
That should be your before landing checklist. So, you know, we did a lot of work to redesign the checklist, and I thought you could maybe give us a little insight on that. A lot of the really experienced pilots I've talked to over time say the first thing they do when they approach a new plane is redesign the checklist.
Yeah. And Part 91, of course, we're authorized to do that. Just keep in mind, you want to make sure that you have a full understanding of the manufacturer's intent. There are checklist procedures where the sequence matters. There are other checklists where when you do it matters. So you just want to make sure that you keep that in mind. And we looked at the descent checklist, the approach to land checklist, the land checklist, and we found that, I don't think it was intentional, but when you use the word approach checklist, you have in your brain that I'm going to do that when I'm on a downwind being vectored for final. To do 21 items in a checklist from that point to landing is way too much. But then when you look at the content, you say, I could have done that 15 minutes ago. And so that was the philosophy, is move as much stuff upstream where you have more time. I'm finding with this new approach that I get it all done, and the last thing I do is at 18,000 feet, I finish my heats and I finish my landing lights to recog, and the next thing's flaps. And I'm done for the next 10 minutes.
Right.
And man, I tell you, it allowed, like you just have said about BREF and freeing up brain power. My brain power is freed up now to be thinking about the landing and the traffic and the conditions and, you know, all of those things that I ought to be focused on instead of having my head buried in a checklist. So.
Right, and we were just talking before about how coming into Salt Lake City here yesterday, I was by myself, and approach was not giving people the runways they wanted, and there was someone who was forced to actually land 2 miles away from the FBO on a different runway, and he spent half an hour taxiing. But you know, it was confusing, even though the weather wasn't that bad. Having to be single pilot and consider being given a different approach, a different runway at the last minute. I purposely did everything I could. I could see that coming into this environment. I did everything I could so that all I had to worry about was flaps and gear at the end, and it freed me up a lot. And to your point, you know, we spent time, the in-flight guides here, which exist for each of the different model types. In the last revision before the conference, we included upstreamed checklists, sort of according to these guidelines that Charlie was discussing, pre-descent 18,000 foot, 10,000 foot checklists instead of everything at the last minute. We encourage everyone to find the in-flight guide. They're on the CJP website. Look at the, these are suggestions. We want your feedback. This is what we came up with. But the idea, again, is to move things earlier in the process so you have more brain space when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. It's called pre-descent now for a reason. We're trying to give you a point in time that we suggest doing these things instead of the original checklist just says descent, so somewhere during descent, or approach, somewhere during approach. We've got pre-descent 18,000 feet, and then you're kind of done.
Right.
And it's really a burden easing kind of a way to do things.
Right, and I think even the manufacturers have admitted openly in our discussions that the OEM checklists are designed partly by legal teams and for other considerations, which admittedly are not always aligned with the pilot's workload as primary.
Best operational way of doing it.
And that's what these are for. So,
again, like I said, we were really careful about, are we causing any unintended consequence with this shift, and they've been run through the ringer pretty well. So I think we're in the right place with this. And for a 91 operator, there's no issue with using it. So give it a try.
Yep, and we do want your feedback. So thanks very much, and until next time, fly safe.
Fly safe.